Welcome back to the third and final part of the adjustments tutorial. In this portion, I'm going to show you guys how to change the color of the sofa in a really realistic way. So we are going to use a new kind of selection tool that wasn't available a while ago on Photoshop or Photopea, but I believe in the past few years has become a really easy way of selecting objects in an image. Before we start, we want to make sure that we're clicked on that living room sofa layer called layer 3. So the object selection tool is really cool because it uses artificial intelligence that's encoded in both the Photopea software and in Photoshop to figure out what you want to select based on just a rectangle that you draw around the object. And in that sense, that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to just click and drag a rectangle around the blue part of the sofa. And we don't really have to worry about the legs because we're only changing the color of the sofa itself. Once I let go, you'll see that it got the right part of the sofa really well, but it did exclude the left part of the sofa here. So to add to the selection, what we want to do is hold Shift on our keyboard and just click and drag this whole left side of the sofa, and you'll see that it did grab it. It looks like it missed another small piece there, so I'm going to hold Shift one more time and select it. Even if you grab a little bit of the leg, that's totally fine. We just want to exclude the scarf because we don't want to change the color of the scarf in the end. So now I'll just scroll around and make sure that my selection is decent. One more time, I want to mention it's totally fine if you don't get the sofa perfectly because we can just adjust our layer mask later on. So after we have our sofa selected, we are going to create what's called a new group, or in the case of Photopea, a new folder. To do this, we are just going to click on the folder icon at the very bottom of our layer panel, which looks like this. And that is automatically going to create and name your folder. In my case, it's just called folder 7. And we are not going to put this image into the folder. We are just going to keep it right outside of it. But we are going to add a raster mask or layer mask to this entire folder and not to the layer. And I will explain why we are doing this a little bit later on. What we want to do is just make sure that the folder is selected, and then we are going to click on the raster mask icon at the bottom of Photopea, which is the little rectangle with a circle in it. Again, it's called Raster Mask. And that is going to create a mask from your selection. So just to give you a little bit of a refresher on what a raster mask is, a raster mask is a mask that hides part of this image that you don't want shown and shows the parts of the image that you do want shown. In this case, if we're looking at this little icon, we can see there's obviously a lot of black in it, and then there's this little area of white. This little area of white is the part of the sofa that you just had selected. Because we had it selected and we added a raster mask, Photopea kind of figured, hey, so she wants the sofa to show and she wants everything else in this image to be hidden. The way it just applies that is by hiding everything in black and showing everything in white. And it's really cool because it's totally temporary. It's not a permanent change that you're making to this picture, whereas it would be permanent if you just took the eraser tool and started erasing the entire background. So that's a little bit of information about a raster mask, and it is important to understand how these things function because at the end of the day, if you do want to become really proficient in Photoshop, making adjustments to your layers without permanently changing them is super important to know. What we want to finally do is change the color of the sofa in a non-permanent way. In order to do this, we are going to go back to our adjustments icon at the very bottom, which is just this circle that's half white and half black, and click on it. And we are going to add what's called a hue and saturation adjustment layer to this raster mask group. So we're going to click Hue and Saturation, and then you're going to see this final little layer pop up and it says Hue and Saturation 2. And it's really cool because now all we have to do is click and drag this Hue bar, and it's going to immediately change the color of our sofa to whatever we want. A little side note, the word hue just means color. You can use those two words interchangeably. So click and drag this bar and grab whatever color you want for your sofa. I'm going to go ahead and choose a red for mine. And obviously this is still really, really dark as the sofa. So we want to bring up the saturation and make it a nice, bright color. So whatever color you do choose, please make sure that you do make it nice and bright, just so I understand that you know how to use the saturation slider. We are not going to touch the lightness slider. I do want you to leave that at 0 because we're not quite at the advanced enough stage to learn how to use this without washing out the color like it's doing right now. So we do just want to keep this at a solid 0. Once you're happy with the color that you've chosen, you can go ahead and just click that Pro icon to get rid of this properties panel. And the very last thing that we want to do is clean up this picture so that the edges are nice and accurate. Right now, if I zoom in, you can see that there's still some blue sofa that's peeking through, and there's a lot of blue sofa peeking through near the scarf. So we are just going to really simply clean it up with our brush tool. Now, before I start with my brush tool, I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm clicked on my raster mask. The raster mask, again, is this little black icon that we put on the folder. So now I can kind of mention the reason that we applied it to the folder and not just directly to this layer. If we applied it directly to the layer, then the entire background that we're seeing behind the sofa would pretty much disappear, because it would think like, hey, she just wants the sofa to appear and everything else would become transparent. So we added a raster mask and we only applied it to this hue and saturation adjustment layer. We did not directly apply it to the picture of the living room with the blue sofa in it. So now we are going to clean this up by taking the brush tool, which just looks like this. Please double check and make sure that you're not on the pencil tool or color replacement tool. You just want the very first brush tool. And we can really easily tell that anything that's black in this raster mask is hidden, and anything white in this raster mask is visible. Judging on that, we are going to be painting in just black and white. I recommend taking a moment and setting your foreground color to white just by clicking it and dragging it all the way up to white, and setting your background color here to a solid black by again clicking it and then clicking and dragging it all the way to the bottom left or bottom right. The first color that I'm going to paint with is white. White is going to make things visible. And what we want to make visible is this red color, which is this hue and saturation adjustment layer that I've added. So I'm going to just take my paintbrush, make sure that my settings are at 100% hardness. My blend mode is normal. My opacity is 100. And I'm going to start clicking and dragging to make this red sofa color appear. So I obviously want this entire area next to the scarf to appear. I'm going to just go ahead and zoom in so I can get nice and close on the details. And I can make my brush smaller just by using the brackets on my keyboard. And I'm just gonna paint my way through. And as I'm doing this, this is just a friendly reminder to make sure to save so you don't lose all of your progress. And a second reminder that if you ever screw up and you happen to like go into the scarf area or something like that, you can always just go to edit and step backward, or you can just hit Control Z on a Chromebook or Command-C on a Mac to undo. I am going to speed through this and just clean it up so you guys can see what the end result should look like, and then I'll show you how to erase things that we don't want in the image using the black color instead. So I'm gonna do my final check and just look around my sofa and grab any areas that I might have missed while I was doing it the first time. And it is looking pretty good. Maybe I just want to get these edges that I missed as I look around. And when I zoom out, it definitely looks good to me. The only parts that are not perfect right now are the areas of the scarf that turned red and the feet of the sofa that might have turned green. In my case, it might be a different color for you. So now I'm going to switch my color to black. There are two ways to do this really quickly and efficiently. The first way is to click on this little tiny up and down arrow, which will swap colors. The other way to do it is just by pressing X on your keyboard. Once you press X, it will automatically switch colors for you. So now I want to be painting with my black color because I want to get rid of any of this green stuff or the red that bled onto the scarf. And I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I'm going to just click and drag and paint over these areas that I want gone. I did notice as I was doing this that I missed a spot of blue right here, so I'm just going to hit X and grab that again. And then I'll continue. Voila, we are now done. Just remember, you guys don't have to make your own sofa red. You can turn it into whatever color you'd like. The very last thing you want to do before you turn these in is just go ahead and change the name of these layers. So layer 1 is going to be called contrast. Layer 2 is going to be called saturation. And layer 3 is going to be called hue shift. That is it. When you are done, rename your project to last name, first name, adjustments. Go to File, Save as PSD, and you are ready to submit your assignment. See you guys on the next one.